Hey everybody, here we have another match in the AMX Chasseur de Char, this time solo pubbing, and I've ended up on the east spawn of Airfield. We're in a tier 9 match, but there's not that many tier 9s. The enemy have a 53-55, which we're going to have to watch out for. A couple of decently armoured tanks, but for the most part it looks like we might actually be able to leverage our mobility a lot here. Really the only mobile tanks on the enemy team are their light tanks, including a 1390, and also the 430 variant 2 and the T44. Out of those, the T44 is not going to be too difficult to deal with if we run into him. And the 430 variant 2 could be a problem, but the gun on the Chasseur de Char is quite good. Either way, I decide to do my usual thing, head up to the D6 rocks. As I've said recently, it's an absolutely critical position on this map. You can't afford to lose it. Looks like our Type 59 is already heading there, and so I decide to give him some support. Now, a lot of the time I actually stop where I am now and hold down in this position, work the corner. In this case, I decided I'd go up. Now, I lost a bit of speed there turning. I actually stopped to turn because I was hesitating whether I'd go up or not. I just get away with it. But once you're up in this position, you do have some pretty good shots across the center of the map, and you can also turn around to engage things pushing the corner. However, you are very exposed to arty and also tank destroyers. Looks like the enemy T44 hasn't decided to leave base. The Type 59 takes a huge hit that was probably meant for me. But we've managed to figure out that the enemy Tiger 2, T28 Proto, and T44 are not keen on pushing out. And with that 155 damage shot, I now know that the T69 is using the 76mm gun. He's not a threat. Although he will be able to pen me no matter what, because of my weak armor, he's not really likely to do that much damage, particularly if he doesn't hit all his shots. Now you want to get the 90mm gun as soon as physically possible on the T69, because as soon as people realize you have that small gun, they're just going to push your face in. Similar deal with the T54E1. If you still have the 90mm gun from the T69, people will just push you relentlessly. You might have more shots, but you're not scary. Not least because you might not even pen. With the north side of the map pretty much okay for now, I decide to shift my attention to middle. Looks like this T28 Proto is going to expose himself in a moment, again, and I would very much like for that. And sure enough, there he goes. Unfortunately, that shot doesn't take him out. And that one bounces off, looks like probably his engine deck. Must have hit it at a very bad angle. Tiger 2 is exposing himself quite badly, and so he's my next target. He isn't quite sure who he wants to shoot at. He hesitantly turns his turret my way a bit and then turns it back towards the guys in front of him. Big mistake. You need to be decisive about which target you engage. You can't afford to wave your turret around like that. It tells the enemy that you don't know what you're doing, and it wastes time. Could have maybe got at least one more shot off there had he not done that. The enemy T44 makes a run behind the buildings. There's just too much hard cover there. I do take a shot, but it would have missed anyway, and there were just too many walls in the way. Look here to see if I can get a shot on the 432, but he's turtled up pretty hard right now. I decide to see if I can get some action on the corner here. Unfortunately, the Carnarvon is pulling back, and I don't want to fight a hold down T34 and hold down T29. Even though the enemy arty's been taken care of, fighting those two, just not good. And staying up here similarly is not going to do me any favours. So after making sure the 1390 isn't actually able to hit me, I carefully slide down the hill. Perhaps not as carefully as I should have, but at least I didn't damage myself. And while the 1390 is occupied clipping somebody else, I work my way up through the middle here. I was hoping to maybe snap a shot off at him as I came up the ramp, but it turns out that he was just too close to the edge of the cliff, couldn't elevate my gun enough, and there was too much ground in the way. I go to take the AT-15's gun out of the action, I'm able to do that quickly, and then go for the T-34. There's really nothing he can do. He's more or less unsupported. The T-29 and Young Hunter are out for themselves at this point. can see the magic of the wide tracks on the American heavies here, and to a certain extent the mediums. Those wide tracks will eat a lot of shots. Scrubbed the shot there on the JP, but he was behind hard cover anyway, and match is over. Pretty cruisy game. Our team was just so much better than the enemy team in this match. It was kind of not fair. So it wasn't really likely to be an even matchup from the start. It looks like a lot of our team actually did contribute from the kill board. Now whether they contributed damage or not is something you'll have to look at the post-games to see. But another demonstration of the just general goodness of this tank. I mean, as long as you aren't expecting to bounce shots, and as long as you aren't charging in headlong at the front where you're going to be focused, the AMX Chasseur de Char, CDC, is a really, really good premium tank. It makes quite a bit of money because you don't really need to fire gold. Even against tier 9s and 10s, your gun pans pretty decently. You've got good enough gun handling. I mean, it's not phenomenal, but for a French tank, it's not bad. You've got some of the best mobility in the game. Your tank's, it's kind of big. It's actually not as small as it looks once you compare it to other tanks. But it has a pretty slick profile, we'll put it. It's quite difficult to hit when it's moving at full speed. And then, of course, you have that excellent gun depression, which is just one of the things that absolutely makes it. So again, if you do have even the vaguest idea of what you're doing, you'll probably find something enjoyable in this tank. But if you're actually one of the players who, does well in any tank and doesn't rely on armor so much, you'll probably have a blast in this thing. It's absolutely worth the entry fee. Even though it doesn't get preferential matchmaking, it's absolutely fantastic, and I don't think it needs pref. In fact, if it had preferential matchmaking, it would be completely overpowered. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.